On this celebratory day, I've been given the privilege to talk to you about the workers and their family. A strong family base is of utmost importance to a pastor. In today's world, we see many pastors falling away from the teachings of the Bible, or even falling away from their faith altogether. Let's face it, if Satan can ruin the pastor, how many other people are affected in a congregation? This is why a strong family base is so important. If there is strife in the pastor's family, the pastor has to deal with his own problems. So how effective can he be with the congregation? And I would like to touch on three main categories today. Number one, how can a pastor be a father to his family and also to the church? In 1 Corinthians, Paul says to the people of Corinth that he is their father through the gospel. This statement goes way deeper than just preaching. It is actually of the entirety of the call of God on a man's life, such as a pastor. And this results in the souls for Christ. So a pastor is not only responsible for his own family, but for the congregation. He is to deal with each person of the congregation as he deals with his own children. The pastor is to be encouraging, comforting, and urge those to live a life worthy of God. The pastor is also here to train and teach. Now, in all three of the verses shown, it specifies to train and teach your children in the ways of God. This not only means his children, but the congregation as well. Training is not only opening the Bible daily, but being the example himself. With teaching, the pastor wields authority in the church as well as his family. The pastor is the head of the family, but in Hebrews, it also says that we as a congregation need to submit to his authority. And with authority, a pastor needs to exercise compassion and love. And sometimes compassion and love means discipline. There are times when loving someone means the pastor needs to be brutally honest and must correct not only his own children, but that of the congregation. As we can see, a pastor's role is not only a job, it is choosing a life that encompasses his whole lifestyle. How can a pastor provide for his family? Point number two. As discussed in point number one, a pastor has many roles, from teaching to loving to disciplining to having authority. And all these aspects are so important. Paul describes neglect of your family as denying the faith and being as an unbeliever. Caring for the family is also a prerequisite for ministry. Paul explains to Timothy in this letter that if a pastor cannot control his own family, how can he keep control of the church? And point number three, how the pastor's family can support him in his ministry. It is important to realize that a pastor and his wife are a team. The calling of pastoring is not only for the pastor, but for the pastor's wife as well. Many times, a pastor is counseling those who are dealing with struggles in their life. But who deals with the struggles of the pastor? His wife, other than God, is his first confidant to deal with his ups and downs. The wife of the pastor needs to have broad shoulders for her husband to lean on. And marriage is the union of one flesh. So the wife needs to be just as strong as the pastor. A pastor's children are to support their father by obeying and honoring their father and mother, as the Bible states. And lastly, how can the congregation support pastor in his ministry? Notice this is not point number 4, but still in point 3. And that is because we are all part of his family. Jesus demonstrated this himself, saying, anyone who hears God's word and puts it into practice are my mother and brothers. The pastor is always there for us in anything we are dealing with. But are we there for him? Yes, there are times we are weak and we need the pastor's shoulders to lean on. But when we are at our strongest, are we saying, what do you need from me, pastor? President John F. Kennedy stated this in the best way: ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. This needs to be our attitude as a practicing Christian. What can we do for God's kingdom and our pastor? Paul states this in Hebrews when he says we are to bring joy to our leaders and not be a burden. So Pastor Jayson and Pastora Vivian, I would just like to thank you for your ministry in Winnipeg. You have been a blessing to myself and my family, and I believe I also speak for the congregation. This day is your day, so enjoy it, and God bless.